Thank you. If you're just tuning in or if you've been with us all day, thank you. We wanted to put together an event that allowed our communities to connect despite the physical distancing that this pandemic has made imperative. And I have to tell you, it has been an emotional day for me, listening to the passion in the voices of our staff, our volunteers, and local partners describing the work in response to COVID-19 while still preparing for the legal, legislative, and election battles ahead has filled me with pride and gratitude. And it's also a reminder of how much we miss the galas, we miss celebrating with our volunteers, our donors, and reminding people of the importance of that work. And then on top of that, this week marks 27 years since the 1993 March on Washington, an event I was privileged to co-chair that drew our community 1 million strong to the nation's capital. So my timeline and my inbox have been flooded with people sharing memories of that day when we stood together and called for bold changes that many thought we'd never see in our lifetimes. We called for an end to legalized discrimination, an end to the military ban. We envisioned marriage equality and an end to sodomy laws that criminalized our existence. And I remember demanding that the government confront an epidemic that was ravaging our community because of years of incompetence and hostility from the highest office in the land. Now, I see the difference between then and now, but I also hear the familiar echoes as well. I know that we must take the lessons we learned, how to take care of each other in the face of government indifference, how to channel fear and anger into activism, and to lean on each other because we need each other more now than ever. That's why we have used our statewide infrastructure to respond on behalf of our community. We've convened local and national LGBTQ organizations regularly to strategize, problem solve, and advocate for our community. Together, we're addressing healthcare inequities that put our community at greater risk in the midst of a pandemic. Just yesterday, the Trump administration announced plans to scrap an Obama-era policy that protected LGBTQ patients from discrimination. All the more alarming when we know how vulnerable our people are during this crisis. And we know that sheltering at home doesn't always mean sheltering in safety, especially for our young people now cut off from the school-based resources we've helped to develop across the state. We see a spike in young people running away from hostile homes. Always a problem, but even more dangerous in the midst of a pandemic. So we will continue to support our community as we navigate this pandemic, and we will not shirk our responsibility to stand up to discrimination, fight back against attacks on our community, and mobilize for the most important national election of our lifetimes. That bold vision of America that we held together on the National Mall in 1993 still guides me in the work at Equality Florida. So over the past 7+ hours, you have been taken on a tour of cities all across the state from Tallahassee to Key West. And with each segment, we've spotlighted the crucial work of Equality Florida. We've updated you on our efforts successfully in blocking hostile legislation in Tallahassee that would have taken away hard-fought local protections. And we've shared with you how we blocked a bill that would have threatened doctors with 15 years in prison for providing life-saving medical care to transgender youth. We not only blocked that draconian bill, but we rallied such strong opposition that we helped stop its momentum in other states. And even in that hostile environment, we continue to gain momentum towards passage of a statewide non-discrimination law, the Florida Competitive Workforce Act, that would add sexual orientation and gender identity to Florida's civil rights law, was the most sponsored legislation in Tallahassee this year. We showcase the incredible work of our Safe and Healthy Schools program that has trained more than 22,000 school professionals. This program has become a model and is creating a culture that allows LGBTQ students to be themselves and thrive. We've shared the critical work of supporting the transgender community that is the hardest hit and the most frequent target of violence and discrimination. And we have redoubled our work to end the stigma that impedes the work of ending HIV. We know this work remains vital, especially as we head into an election where Florida will decide who occupies the White House for the next 4 years, and whether the Florida legislature adds champions or opponents of equal rights. In the coming days, we will likely see a decision by the Supreme Court that could push us backwards or muddy the water when it comes to non-discrimination protections, and a federal court will rule on conversion therapy bans. We have to be prepared to do everything in our power to stop that barbaric practice of conversion therapy and secure our rights, even if the courts fail to protect us. Now, in times of crisis, we're told to look for the helpers. And as we connect with our volunteers and our donors statewide in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, we see many helpers. We see people volunteering their time to make masks for frontline healthcare workers or creating funds to provide for the most vulnerable in our community. And we continue to be the helpers, navigating this epidemic and doing the work to ensure we emerge from this strange and troubled time into a country with leadership that embraces equality and justice for all. But to get there, we need you. Now, as a co-founder of Equality Florida, I have had many titles. I have been a volunteer, I've been a board member, and finally executive director. But the one I am proudest of is donor. My wife and I usually donate $100 a month to support the work because we know how much difference every single dollar makes. This year, we're giving our entire gift early, tonight in fact, so that we can have our $1,200 donation doubled by the AIDS Health Foundation and again by the John Evans Foundation. I hope you'll join me, whether you can give $1 or $100 or join me at the $1,200 Florida Council level. We need you now, and I can step up. People are struggling and people are hurting, which means we have to rely on those who can to lean in and keep us strong for now and the huge battles ahead. So please go to equalityflorida.org, Equality Live, and make your gift right now. Be one of those helpers.